Hello, everybody. My name is Charles Marinaro, and with us today we have the talented and wonderful Stefan Baumann,
Thank you for having me.
the photographer, videographer, cinematographer, artist.
Do a lot of things.
There's a lot of stuff.
So does this guy too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's get this started right off the bat. What was it that got you involved in the film industry? What was the driving force?
Initially going to culinary school.
Really?
Yeah. When I was a senior in high school, my father was a chef at the culinary, and he always said that, I don't care what you do, but you're going to college and you're going to finish it. And if you want to be a chef, great. I'd love that. If you don't want to be, cool. Do what makes you happy. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I liked cooking, and then my father passed away, and I didn't want to lose out on the opportunity to have a scholarship. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to culinary school. And within 4 months of being in culinary school, I had to start my externship in the city, which I ended up working at the Time Life building in Manhattan. And I was living in Brooklyn at the time, commuting back and forth, and realizing I kind of hated it and really wasn't as good at it as I thought I would be. Because it's not just about cooking well. I can do that. It's about precision, it's about stress, it's about the heat, the long hours. The people that you work with are quite often very angry. It's a very intense business, and some people love that. I'm not one of them. I had a chef who was more blunt than most people, and sometimes could come across a little bit rude. And he came up to me one day and he goes, because I was a very overweight gentleman at the time. I was probably close to 300 pounds. And he goes, "You're too fat." And I said, "Excuse me, what?" He said, "Go walk 20 blocks after work, or 15 blocks." And I was furious. I was like, who the hell does this guy think he is? And so I said, fine, I will. And then I did, and then I enjoyed it. And I came in the next day to tell him, like, I did it. He goes, good, now walk 50. And I went, Who, what? Okay, I don't even know how to process that, so I'm just going to try it. So I did it, and again, I enjoyed it. And, I went home, I don't know if it was that weekend or the weekend after, but as I was looking through the storage room that we have, I found my dad's old Minolta camera, the film camera and slide film. He was good at it. You can't take slide film unless you're good at it, because if you're even slightly off on the exposure, you basically ruin the slide. You can't use it. So you have to know what you're doing. And he was prolific. He had thousands and thousands of slides in boxes all over the place. I haven't even gone through all of them yet. And so I asked my mom, can I take the camera down and, play with it and try to learn it? Again, another thing I wanted to try to learn how to do. And she said yes. And then, within about a month or so, the shutter snapped because it had been stored improperly. And I ended up getting a point-and-shoot film camera and saving money by eating egg burritos during the week so I could buy film on the weekend, and getting it developed at a print shop in Brooklyn with some Russian dude who's like, why do you take these pictures? These suck, And, through him helping me, through books, through going to B&H Photo, which at the time didn't have the customer service it has now. It's improved a lot. But at the time, I went there, I'm like, what's an f-stop? And the guy's like, I don't have time for you. You'll read the book. Basically cursed me out and told me to go away. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go read a book then. So I went to Barnes & Nobles and started learning and practicing and continued printing and eating egg burritos. And by the time I was done with the externship, I knew that that's what I wanted. Or I knew damn sure that I didn't want to be a chef. And so I got back to school, and I failed the easiest class that we had, actually, which was menu development. A 2-year-old could do it. And the teacher came over, he's like, Stefan, what's going on? This isn't like you, you're smarter than this. Because he knew my dad, of course. And I explained to him what had happened, and he goes, let me see what I can do. And he got me a job in the photo studio on campus. That was Dr. Ezra, actually, or Professor Ezra. He got me a job on the photo studio on campus, doing graduations, food, photography, you name it. And by the time I graduated, I knew for a fact, I'm a photographer, not a chef. I just stayed because everybody said to stay. And so I did. Moved to Germany as an exchange student right after that. found out about the program through one of my teachers in my senior year, and they choose 75 Americans and 75 German out of over close to 700 applicants. And it's from around the country, all different fields and professions. And essentially, I got to go to Germany for a year for free, learn the language, travel around, meet the chancellor. Like, I got to do some pretty cool stuff. And the whole time, I had a camera with me. And even though at that point I started transitioning to digital because film was dying out, I still only had 3 little cards with 12 images each worth of space. So it was basically like still shooting with film. So I couldn't go out and take 1,000 shots and then go through it and see which one was good. I had to make it good every time. And so I got back and I knew that I had 2 options. I could go to New York City and knock on doors with my portfolio, which I didn't have yet. I hadn't put one together yet, and try to get work that way, or do 1 year of school. So I did 1 year of school, went out to Denver, Colorado, and the director of the program was like, "This is the last time we're offering it," and he gave me crap from the moment I started. He thought that I was just, most of the people who had taken the diploma program weren't very serious about it. The difference was I was extremely serious, but I couldn't afford to do more. So I joined critique clubs for the upperclassmen students, which no one does when you're a freshman because it's like you're getting your work criticized, honestly, but it's hard to hear. Volunteering in the studio during summer break to help recruit new students just so I could have studio time, and just constantly pushing. I even convinced one of the teachers to let me take a printing class for free as long as I kept my mouth, like as long as we did it quietly. I won't say the name of the teacher, but all of those things allowed me to really develop at a very rapid pace. And then I came home and realized I knew nothing about business. I almost gave up. I got to a point where I was like, why am I putting all this effort in if I can't even make any money off of it? And that was probably about 5 years into it at that point. And it was a very tough transition to make, to accept that I'm not as good as I thought, and that I need to learn all of these other things that go along with being a photographer, other than just taking that picture. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into that. And then people started asking, do you do film? I was like, no, but I could try to learn it. And next thing you know, I'm doing events and making little videos for fun and doing little interviews, trying to put together YouTube. And then I ran into you. And that's basically how I got into filmmaking.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, your story is a story of constant learning.
Yes.
Constant paying it forward. Your father was a teacher. You finding that camera and taking that on. But now I hear, rumor has it, you've taken this and you've paid it forward to the youth.
Yeah.
And you're helping them learn the skill, the trade of art and the camera.
Yep. Mentioning that just made me remember, like, I was in 4-H as a kid. So, like, that's where I started a lot of other, like, I learned how to knit, sew, crochet, did all that stuff when I was in, like, 5th grade. And through a connection that I've been working with, I was introduced to the directors of the 4-H program for Canal Cooperative Extension. And they asked if I would be willing to teach a photography class to some high school kids and an art class to some middle schoolers and elementary schoolers. And I jumped on it because it was like an opportunity, like you said, to pay it forward, to really share my knowledge with them. And I knew also that one thing I was going to do differently was, I hated as a kid if the art teacher told me what I had to draw. I did it, but I was like, I want to draw what I want to draw. I don't want to draw what you want to draw. And so I allowed these kids to choose what they wanted to draw and then help them, because it was a small enough class, to then develop their skill through that. And then the photography class was even better because I had these kids who were like really interested in learning all of this photography, and then getting to take them out into the woods and show them how to do it on the property where we were. It was at the Seligman Center in Sugarloaf. And just seeing that joy in their eyes is really, it's satisfying.
So joy, excitement, all these things that you enjoyed seeing, and I'm sure you brought it to them as well. Growing up, and you putting yourself in those shoes at the 4-H, and even beyond that, what happened in your childhood, what did that do? Like, how did that inspire you, like, as a child, bringing you into this?
Well, as a child, it was a somewhat of a different situation. Like 4-H, my parents got me into it. I enjoyed it. It was, it was just my sisters were in it. That's what we did, and it gave me an introduction to a bunch of different forms of art. And I still use them today. I can still do a lot of the things that I learned back then. But what really did it was that I had a pretty rough childhood. Not because of my family; they were actually what got me through it. But I had a babysitter who unfortunately abused me, and I had, blocked a lot of it out of my memory. And I also went through school getting bullied to the point where I almost lost it. My parents were worried I was either going to hurt someone or hurt myself, and I didn't think I would do either at the time. But I was pretty close to a breakdown. That was in 7th grade. And throughout that entire time, without even realizing that I was doing it, I was using art as my therapy. And I was really taking all of those emotions, that rage, that helplessness, that frustration, everything, and putting it into this art. And when I look back through those pictures now, which I still have in my marble notebook that I used to draw in, it gives me chills, and it makes me sad, and it makes me scared to think that anybody could have that much darkness in them at so young an age. Yet, if I hadn't had that outlet of art to express that, I would have imploded. Like that was my release valve. That was what got me through it. And I developed my talent as a result of that. And as I healed throughout the years, it became a way to transition to more beautiful things and to focusing on nature and portraits and all the stuff that I do now. And so even now, like if I'm having a bad day, if I pick up a camera or a pen or a brush and I go out and create something, it immediately starts to make me feel better. So that's really the driving force behind it. That and just a constant unquenchable desire to learn and to overcome challenges. Like I don't even care sometimes what the end product is going to look like. I just want the experience of learning how to make it. And say that I did that and I did it well, and that's what really keeps me going.
Wow, it's pretty admirable, the story of an upbringing and such negativity that you've happened to take by the horns and turn it into something positive. So let's take it back a little bit, or maybe not take it back, take it forward, to the film years. I mean, the film with me, Oath to Injustice, that you were the cinematographer. It was quite the experience for me. It was life-altering. I mean, over the years, everything changes and evolves. But for you, what do you feel was the most rewarding yet challenging things in this experience?
A lot of things. It was a challenge from beginning to end in a good way. Sometimes it was frustrating, but I had to learn how to take what was in your head and make it appear on screen the way that you wanted. And that requires communication, which sometimes didn't always go, and nope. I didn't. You're like, go put the camera there, and I'd walk to the opposite side, and you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I thought you... okay. So that aside, but all of the different challenges, whether it came from the fact that we're running on a budget, we're using the lighting now that we used on the film. The cameras were not what you would normally expect for an independent film of that quality. Like, I'm using a Sony a6400 was the main camera. We even used GoPros at some point. I had to volunteer, or I volunteered at one point to actually be an actor in the film, and have you basically beat me up about 15 times in a row and stick a fake gun in my mouth and chase me through the house. That was a first. So, working in 90-degree heat in an attic in a set that you guys built while I was at my day job, coming in and then spending the next 3 hours setting up all these lights and then trying to get it to look the way we wanted, and then dealing with the microphones and everything. All of that was new to me. And I'd done little bits here or there, but nothing on that scale. And then to have an entire crew on top of that, waiting on you to get it done quick, adds a whole new layer of pressure. And at the end of it, to be able to say, like, once again, I made that, and to watch the look on people's faces when I showed them clips of stuff that I filmed. Like, I ran through in the center of two lines of moving motorcycles with a camera on a gimbal above my head, and then finish my finale by tripping over one of the motorcycles. So, hopping in pickup trucks, falling downstairs. I'm accident prone.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah. So, all of that, and then still the excitement of when it finally comes out. I'm looking forward to.
I am as well.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for it to come out. For the audience listening, it is coming out. You know, COVID-19, we got to make sure it's safe and that the premiere is something of a high caliber. We don't want to like shortchange anybody with 50 people in an audience spread out by 6 feet. We want to make sure it's ready and we're able to do it to the best of our abilities.
Yeah.
But you got all these, these productions. What is next for you?
Well, there's a couple things in the works. My personal passion project that I'm just started working on and I want to continue developing over the next year or so is a documentary about everything that's going on right now from, people. We went from living what we considered normal life to being hit with a pandemic to quarantining for 2-3 months and all of the mental stresses that go along with that, the depression of being alone and being afraid for a good period of time. Because I was also working at the time as a medical assistant full-time during the week, and being around that day in and day out was very challenging. And then in the midst of all that, you have a level of racial strife that we haven't seen openly since Martin Luther King. And you have politicians who, no matter which side of the party they're on, don't seem to know how to do what they need to do to make this country work. And there's a lot going on, and I really want to show a objective view that could possibly increase understanding what's going on right now from, people. We went from living what we considered normal life to being hit with a pandemic to quarantining for 2-3 months and all of the mental stresses that go along with that, the depression of being alone and being afraid for a good period of time. Because I was also working at the time as a medical assistant full-time during the week, and being around that day in and day out was very challenging. And then in the midst of all that, you have a level of racial strife that we haven't seen openly since Martin Luther King. And you have politicians who, no matter which side of the party they're on, don't seem to know how to do what they need to do to make this country work. And there's a lot going on, and I really want to show a objective view that could possibly increase understanding between sides. Because right now they're at a point where neither side is listening. Neither side is looking towards compromise. It's my way or the highway, and the other side is the enemy. And that's how you start a war. And I don't want to see that happen to our country. I don't want to see people at each other's throats. So I want to find a way to bring that forward in a documentary that can really show people in an objective way what everybody's thinking, and hopefully increase the understanding from that.
Wow. There's a lot going on, a lot into it.
Yeah.
Is this something that's,
it's in a lot of it hasn't been filmed yet. I filmed a protest recently and a Trump rally on the same day at West Point a couple weeks back. So that was the first part of it, and then interviewing some of the people there and really trying to get their opinions on it. I'd like to start interviewing like doctors as well about their part, like with COVID and where they think we're going to go. So it's still in the planning stages, so it's kind of hard to put a definite on it. But in addition to that, and just continue doing what I do, like weddings, portraits, working on films with you. I just constantly, I gotta keep busy.
That's great.
Gotta keep going.
So as a final thought to people who, they have a lot of dreams and they might have a lack of ambition though. What is your final thought to get these people inspired? I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about the people that might be retired, or even the people in their mid-40s or stuck in that dead-end job, or even a job that might be good, but they have things that they still want to do, but they're just afraid to do it. What do you say to them?
Okay, there's a couple things. One, surround yourself with people who are of a like mind, who have similar goals. Because if you surround yourself with people who have no ambition, who have no desires beyond the next party on Friday night, that is going to be your life. Start hanging around with people who are going to get you where you want to go. Learn from them, ask them questions. You know, that's a big part. Networking, just getting out there and meeting other professionals is going to be the biggest step you can make. Also, don't give up. Just don't give up. I mean, there are times where you're going to want to curl up into a ball because it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard as a creative. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. You're going to discover your weaknesses, your strengths. You're going to develop those. And you're going to run into situations where you really aren't in charge of what happens, but you have to deal with the consequences, whether it be a pandemic or something else. You have to work around those challenges and overcome those challenges. And you have to believe in yourself. Like, don't hate the work you make. Learn from it. Don't be an artist who criticizes your own work to the point where you're disgusted by it every time. I've never been that. I've always been the person who said, okay, I did that. That's pretty good. That's not where I want it to be. I want it to be better. And then go make it better and learn from it and use that as your platform to keep excelling and getting better.
You hear that, people? Excel and getting better.
And don't give up.
Do not give up. Well, thank you so much for this interview.
My pleasure.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. And how could the audience find you?
Pretty simple. Steph B Photo. It's a website. Same thing on YouTube. Same thing on Facebook. The only one that's different is on Instagram, and that's Steph B Photogram, just because the name was already kicking. So, yeah.
All right, people. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.